I have to admit that this conversation I have just had has definitely made me rethink everything I thought I knew about social media, what I did know about social media, what I feared about social media, because I was lucky enough to speak to Sue Fennessy, founder and CEO of WeAre8, the social media platform that's unlike any you've ever known before because it's full of positivity, empathy, and integrity. This is a social media platform with femininity at its very heart. And I honestly was moved to tears, not only because of her extraordinary letter, but because I was sitting with one of the most powerful women yet to be. And it was one of those moments where I pinched myself, realizing that Sue very much could be the savior that we've all been looking for. And I pray she is. And I know that we as a community will do everything to support this incredible woman on her quest to change things for the better.
Bow your head and let your eyelids close on down. Where we're going, you won't need to bring your frown.
I'm Holly Tucker, and welcome to Conversations of Inspiration. Back in 2006, I founded Not on the High Street from my kitchen table, and since then, I've gone on to launch Holly & Co. I'm the UK ambassador of creative small businesses, and I believe that having a business doing what you love is the key to a happy, fulfilled life. My dream is to help everybody start theirs. I'm here to offer advice, inspiration, wisdom, and encouragement. And in my view, the best way to do this is by sharing stories. So I've reached out to my favourite small businesses, entrepreneurs, and those who simply inspire me and asked them to share theirs. With thanks to Adobe, who've helped bring this podcast to life. Here are my conversations of inspiration. Hi, Sue. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have been looking forward to this conversation so much. So a warm welcome to Conversations of Inspiration.
Oh, thank you, Holly. It's so gorgeous to be here. Thank you.
Well, we've both just been talking about, just before we aired, what a day we're both having and how funny it's us tech female entrepreneurs, as much as we might have built things before, just working from home and normal stuff can really, really get in the way. But I'm so excited to talk about the revolutionary vision that you have, and with your platform, WeAre8. I just want to give you the heads up. Will you just, and by the way, just meeting you, I already know you'll do this. Just go easy on all of us. You're talking to tech imposter syndrome gang number one here, okay? So
oh, I love
we
you.
just want to go with you with this, but you're so super smart. Just bear with us.
Oh, do you know what the funny thing is? You never look at yourself like that, right? But I look at the technology, and technology should serve us as human beings, instead of us being slaves to it. And I always think there's this tendency to think, oh my God, they've built all these brilliant algorithms and they're so brilliant out of Silicon Valley. Well, the truth is they've been serving themselves, and those algorithms, by the way, we studied all the algorithms. They're built just to control what we see and how we feel. So I'm all up for challenging the status quo, and it's not as frightening as what exists today, actually.
Oh, well, I'm so pleased to hear about this, because I think it's genius what you're doing. And I think the world is completely ready. All of us are completely ready for you and what you're building. I'm going to get into it more later down the podcast, but just to kick us off before we get into your childhood, would you just tell us a little bit about WeAre8 and just more about what we're going to hear about?
Yeah, so Holly, look, I feel everything I've kind of done for the last 35 years has kind of led to this. But basically, I built a company in the US that was tracking ad spend all around the world, a data company. And the shocking thing, we were looking at brands spend $500 billion a year, Last year, $117 billion went directly to Facebook. And the crazy thing was, it wasn't even working for the advertisers. Like the click-through rate and engagement was under 0.4%. So that sort of struck me as, how could we have $117 billion going to a company that's only delivering 0.4% engagement rate? Rio Ferdinand, who's a big partner, and I often laugh. I mean, it's what would Manchester United have said if you'd all go onto the field and you'd only be successful 0.4% of the time? I mean, everyone would be thrown off. So I was looking at this just thinking, this is so broken. It's not even working for advertisers. And then at the same time, we were seeing, you know, the climate. As a mum, as a human, I was seeing that they were fueling climate misinformation. I remember 7 years ago, I was saying we have 15 years until the damage we've done to our planet is irreversible. I was seeing it fuel the mental health crisis and just how people were feeling. And then there was this catalyst moment for me. I was in the States, and there was a stat that the Federal Reserve came out with saying 40% of all Americans can't find $400 in an emergency, which, by the way, they think post-COVID it's 80% of all Americans. It's very similar stats here in the UK. I mean, these stats are shocking. And I just thought, oh, my God, each of us is worth $400 a year to Zuckerberg and Facebook. And yet that's what people can't get, you know, people can't find that in an emergency.
Can't get hold of it.
Right? So all we've got to do is have brands now value and pay people for their time instead of going through social. So for us, it was sort of two things. How do we reimagine that ad model so the money is shared? I often see headlines saying WeAre8 pays users to watch ads. Well, no, we don't. We share the advertiser money with our citizens and charities. 5% of all the money goes through to charities, 5% goes to a creator fund, and 50% of the money goes into people's pockets. We share the wealth, we share the money with the people. And I think it's this reimagine the economic model to redirect the money from the tech companies back to people, and then reimagine social in a way that you can't be anonymous, is free from hate, is good for the planet. So what you're going to see in January is a completely reimagined social that's going to feel like an old familiar shoe, like putting on Instagram, but you'll be back in control. You'll see your friends free of algorithms in a friend's feed. You'll get inspired on the 8th stage by following people you love. And then if you want to watch a couple of ads, every time you do, donations go to charity and money goes into your wallet so you can pay your mobile bill, you can pay your Spotify. Because our whole thinking is you should be getting £1 a day or $1 a day for 2 to 3 minutes of your time. The tech companies shouldn't get it. And so what starts with a sort of a commercial economic, reclaiming our economic power, then turns into us standing united to all have a voice. So our larger vision is then to just bring power back to people's voices and imagine a world where we can not just 8 million people don't have enough food in the UK. So let's get today, donate your earnings to Fair Share, who can get someone a meal for 25p. Let's address that together. And then let's tap on this petition to save the bees, so that Greenpeace can, you know, go to Parliament with, or multiple parliaments around the world with 1 billion signed petitions. It's this whole collective action wrapped in a really fun bow feeling.
I told you, everyone, we have got someone super special here today. I mean, are you just kidding me there? I I just want to just bow in your presence.
God,
and I haven't
stop
even
it, Holly.
got to the first question about your childhood yet. Hang on. I mean, how has this happened? Well, we're going to come full circle to this because going back to young Sue, you grew up outside of Melbourne in Australia. Your dad was a pathologist and your mum was a nurse. And this spiked this early love of science that we've just heard being spoken about, but into such a brilliant way because no one is feeling like the imposter at this point in time. Was it a happy childhood?
By the way, I bow in your presence, Holly. Look at what you... Can you take a good look in the mirror, my friend? I mean, seriously.
Bless you. Was it a happy childhood?
Yeah, I had a... Look, I look at it. I was really happy. It was a working class suburb. I mean, my parents were good people. Mum... I used to do Meals on Wheels with Mum and they were community kind of citizens, people. Dad was always very much about for the others. He was, pathologist, so I used to go to the hospital with him and I loved the science and we used to have some pretty intense conversations around the table. There probably wasn't as much laughter as I would have loved, is the reality, but I don't know that there ever is in life. I actually at one point said to my team, I just want every single comedian just to do a funny clip every day. I want the top 8 funniest moments and that's all I want to start my day. Then I want to see a few friends and feel a moment of changing the world and then go and run through the forest. So as a little girl, I think, I don't know that any of us ever feel like we really fit in, do we?
No, I mean, I think there's a happiness that we can feel, which always feels like a good foundation, a good stable foundation. And it feels like you did have that.
Totally.
But potentially, as you've grown into becoming a parent, maybe there's more laughter around your tables than there were when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But and maybe I place too much high priority on laughter and silliness. But, growing up, my parents actually took us to Europe. We had that book, Europe on $20 a day, and we were in this crappy little car going around Europe as a kid. And I was 10 at the time. And I just remember it's like my whole world opened up to what was possible. And I can still remember we had to write a diary every day. I mean, my parents are good people. But, I just think my family, it was all about education and travel. And so they sacrificed, that's why Mum was working to help us with school. And so they were really good people. I just think I wanted to escape.
Yeah. Yeah. I also read when researching you that you loved cooking as a child, but that colour TV had a huge impact on you. Obviously, there was no social media in those days. I remember that. Tell me about that. Why did it impact you?
Yeah, I mean, my mum Dad's a scientist and also an artist, actually. So it was this beautiful mix of pathology is diving deeply into the cellular structure and then, art is pulling landscape art, pulling back and seeing the colour and up to the universe. And it was all crazy, fabulous conversations with Dad. And he'd make us go through art galleries for years. And Mum was sort of into cooking and she worked. So she'd leave food in the fridge and I would cook. And I used to pretend actually that I had a cooking show. But there were no mobile phones. I would have loved it to actually have a cooking show.
Yeah.
But I used to imagine I had a cooking show and I would cut everything up and put it in the little bowls and stuff and then and I would cook it all and then imagine that there was a giant chute and I could put any excess food in the chute and imagine that it would whiz off to people that needed it. And then I used to I remember when black and white TV became colour and it was magical. I mean, the idea that all of that could be coming from America. I mean, it was like Bewitched and the Brady Bunch and all of those really beautiful shows.
Yes.
And it would come into my lounge room and make me imagine another world. And I became really obsessed with how that reached me. And then I used to imagine that all those characters, that we could talk to them and you know, even imagining sort of getting into that screen. And that was how I would escape.
But how, I mean, look at the golden thread there. You're literally, you are getting into a screen and you really are doing that thing. I mean, that is a bizarre thought, actually, that is literally now what you're doing. I so want to get into how you started, and I'm going to touch on also your career, but skipping forward a few years, you're now truly immersed in the world of social media, a very sort of digital landscape, and one very sort of different, I suppose, from when you were younger. And you had, before starting this business, you had a career, didn't you? And where digital was your career. Tell me about that and how you got into that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm 54, Holly, so there's been a long time, there's been 35 years really obsessed with media, and you actually just made me think, I wonder if now we've built this gigantic collective chute to get meals to people in need. I mean, sorry, on some level, when I talk about the numbers on how few people it takes watching 4 minutes of ads a day to get 800 million people fresh water or food, it's entirely possible. So, sorry, you just made me think about that. Maybe we've built the giant chute together. Always obsessed with media and how it sort of shapes our lives. And even I look back at the sort of perfect world of what the Brady Bunch, I mean, that was so ridiculous, wasn't it, that what we all used to aspire to? And then I started a company in Australia, built and sold that to Omnicom. We worked with lots of the Sydney 2000 Olympic sponsors, and then built a company in China, and bought the first musical to China, actually, with Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then built a tech infrastructure that was really using early digital at the time. DVD, remember VHS?
Yes.
So what was fascinating about China is they leapfrogged, when your technology base isn't great, it also means the upside is that you're not attached to legacy infrastructure. So they leapfrogged landline and went to mobile. That's why the mobile phone rate in China grew so quickly. They leapfrogged VHS and went straight to DVD. So their uptake on new technology was so rapid because they didn't have both habitual and infrastructure attachment to the old technology. And so it was a much more exciting time for me personally because of that, because of the speed of technology in China at the time felt so much faster. And then you could really see this emerging creativity that was happening. I mean, look, I remember standing in a lift and listening to an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical and seeing the faces of everyone around me. And I thought, oh my God, we have to get this here. So then we bought the first compilation musical to China, had a DVD, and then did deals with the TV networks and distributed it. And that sort of grew that. And then I built this data company in America where it was, for me, you know, when you feel, you know, you have to build something to get to where you want, and you know deep in your gut it's not the end game, but you've got to do it. And essentially this company that took me to New York, and I always wanted to live in New York. Basically, the way media and advertising is traded, there wasn't any transparency. So this is all sort of boring, but I went to New York. We built these data systems inside these 6 companies that control $500 billion of advertising spend. So they make the decisions, right, on all these ad dollars on behalf of Coca-Cola and all the companies. And for the first time, we could just see where all the money was going. And you could see the size of the market. And that became sort of the backbone to media trading in the US. All the Disney and NBC and all these companies used it. B2B, I kind of love plumbing as well. I love understanding that. But what it did was, for the first time, we could see all the money. And if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have built relationships with the TV networks and the media agencies and everything, but it also wouldn't have showed me what was broken and the vulnerability. Yeah. We look at Facebook and these massive tech behemoths, and we cannot imagine any fragility. They have no civic responsibility. They just don't give a shit. They run their own race. They report to shareholders. They want to make more money. They control what we see and how we feel, and they do not care that it causes teen suicide, for God's sake, Holly. I mean, what fucking world are we living in that's okay? And so that there had to be an evolution of that. And what's fascinating, when you build a model that delivers advertisers a better result but shares the majority of all the money, then you create a much more abundant ecosystem where everything can thrive. I mean, we were looking at so in Australia, I was in Australia last week. We've got a cracking team there, and there's 21 million social media users in Australia. We call people citizens, not users. But we were looking at the stats. If 20 million daily active 8 citizens watched just 2 minutes of ads a day, so whether you're waiting for the bus, cleaning your teeth, whatever, just watch 2 minutes of ads a day, in 1 month, $28 million would go to charity, $360 million to the people, $8 million to climate solutions, and $36 million to a creator fund to fund pure creativity, art, music, all of so. And by the way, we take 40 cents in the dollar to cover the tech infrastructure and the security infrastructure and everything that's absolutely fucking massive behind the scenes. But when you build a system that is truly sustainable, which is not just good for the planet, but good for people and good for everyone, where everyone is thriving and it's moving from greed and scarcity and fear to abundance and love, and where we're all thriving, then and that, by the way, is just 20 million people. So imagine that. I mean, our whole mission is 2 billion people making this their social home, feeling safe. No, you can't be anonymous, and zero tolerance of hate, and pay your bills, and let's all do good shit together, can we?
Just listening to you, I've got, a million questions, and I'm almost in a trance hearing your story and hearing about WeAre8. There is just before we get more into it all, and for yourself, you said you're 54 and you are a female and you're a mum, and you talked about this sort of history of built this business and I sold this and I built it and I sold this and I built it. And a lot of people might be just listening thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those women. What keeps you going in terms of what made you just keep propelling yourself onto the next thing? Do you strive to build? Is it a quest to right a wrong?
I'd love to ask you this question too, because I think we have to compare notes here, Holly, because I think things just choose you. I mean, this is very mission-led, transparently, because it was more that if it was about the money, after I sold the data company, and by the way, before I sold that, to keep 8 going, I had to borrow $5 million, by the way, at a 30% interest rate, because no fucking bank would lend me the money. And I had to borrow it from people. And I've paid it all back now, because thank God I sold the data company really successfully, thank God, because I could breathe for a second. But I said to my husband, I would rather live in a caravan and know that I've given this my best shot because I can't see anyone else working on this. And because I'd come at it from the unique perspective of spending 35 years in the industry, really understanding the algorithms, the tech, the infrastructure, how to build a zero tolerance of hate place, how actually to do that, how to reimagine the ad model. By the way, we've built our version of Facebook Ad Manager, so it's the buying engine, so millions of brands can run their campaigns. We've built our SAMI, it's a sustainable ad manager, full transparency, better results, all of that, great. But I said, I have to build this because I can't see anyone else building it, and that scares the shit out of me for my kids. So my beautiful, patient husband said, just go and do it, keep going. And so it's you just know you have to do it. And look,
I think it's a responsibility, isn't it? I mean, you said on my behalf, I think it's the responsibility, on my behalf. And by the way, listeners, I am understanding my pecking order here with Sue in terms of not the pecking order, that was the wrong thing, in terms of what she's building and what I've built, but at the different sizes, but the same sort of heart and soul, which is, every single day I woke up or I went to sleep, I felt I had the responsibility of many people's livelihoods, heart, happiness on my shoulders. And people would almost say to me, why are you doing that? And I was like, well, I'm not built differently. I inherently care about people and I want them to be happier. And I think I have the key to do that. And now I know that. I can't unknow it. So I better just get on and do it because who else is going to do it? Similarly, it's like you just said, well, is anyone else going to take on those people? I mean, is anyone else going to, and we're going to get into this because some of the things that you say about WeAre8, I'm like, this can, and we're going to talk about the femininity that I'm feeling coming through the whole company. It's potentially you're going to be the only one on this planet right now that is going to do it. So it's that sort of responsibility, but also like, I'm just going to suck it up because also this is what I can do.
Do you know, and it's been a recent thing, and you're absolutely right, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then that just sits with you every hour. It sits with you when you wake up, when you go to bed at night, all of that. What I've recently come to feel, which has been really liberating actually, I can just show up and do my best work every day. And I've just got to build the best experience so people can see and feel it too. And they can wake up, oh my God, in just 2 minutes a day, could I get someone a meal? Oh my God, we all have power, right, collectively. And when we're stripped of value and suppressed, we've learnt it's like Lord of the Flies. We're just completely suppressed. Everyone hates each other. No one has enough money. And everyone is sort of working out how they survive. I mean, the creative economy, everything is struggling. When you change the economic model and create a new patch of land that is built with values and a commitment and a civic responsibility, I can't wait, Holly, by the way, until we build a teacher's trust and a nurse's trust. Because the reality is these companies are global and we don't have a global economy. We don't have a global government, and the governments haven't charged the tech companies enough tax, so therefore they don't have enough money to pay and to fund all the infrastructure. So what we want to do is, and by the way, I don't just want $100 billion to flow back to the people. I want $400 billion to flow back to 1 billion people every year. And so what I feel like I've done is separate myself, because we're all just doing it. I look at my chief technology officer, I look at my CEO in Australia, I look at all our team around the world, my COO, everyone. It's actually all of us just doing the same work, aligned by the same values to make this shit happen and bring it home.
Yeah. Well, it's what committed citizens can do. I always talk about the Margaret Mead quote, never underestimate it. Never underestimate the power of us. And it is true. Tell me, WeAre8, you've called it this name, and 8. Tell me about what 8 means, because it's beautiful when you realize.
It represents the infinite power of people to come together to solve the world's biggest problems. It's just unity, togetherness, the infinite flow of a healthy ecosystem where everyone's winning. I mean, we look at Googleplex, for example, and I like Google as a company. Sometimes that is the largest number, but infinity is bigger and abundant and keeps flowing. And in an infinite world, everyone wins and we all, affect each other. It's also the 8th, oxygen is the 8th element on the chemical table, being a nerd. I kind of love, it's the oxygen.
I love that
we need to.
The best founders are nerds.
You don't
Aren't
feel
they?
like a
Absolutely,
nerd.
completely and utterly obsessed. There's nothing you don't know about that number 8, is there?
think
You
there
could
is.
be your mastermind. What's your specialized subject? Nothing else but number 8.
People tell me, I learn every day actually about the. Do you know a funny thing? We think we live with, because we say, actually, just spend 8 minutes on social, because we're not saying get off the other platforms. Just spend 8 minutes here. Get a bit of inspiration by following people you love. See your friends, free of algorithms. Watch a couple of ads, then go and live your life. And I realized I had my head down too, just working. I work about 20 metres from the British Museum, and I hadn't been there I was there when I was 10 years old with my dad. And the other day I was running back to work and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go in there for 20 minutes. And going into the British Museum was a heads up, life is amazing and we are just here for a little millisecond. And when you look at the evolution and I mean, perspective, right, Holly? Because we get so into what we're building and we've all just got our heads down. We've just got to somehow put our heads up.
As you know, I'm passionate about celebrating small businesses and championing creativity within all of us. That's why I'm thrilled to be working with Adobe Express, who each week are handing over their ad break to a small business founder, shining a light on their own businesses and sharing how Adobe Express really is helping fuel their creativity. Thank you once more to Adobe, who have helped to make this podcast episode happen. If you want to find out more about Adobe Express and how it can help your business, head over to adobe.com/go/Holly Tucker. Now let's get back to our conversation of inspiration. What I just also feel that you're doing here is that you're helping us cut ties with these things that have just become places of addiction, and not only in our personal lives, but for us founders as well. And I have an entire community who are now basically dedicating hours and hours and hours of their day to fuel what they feel that they have to have in order to succeed in business.
Yeah.
And I'd love to come back to that, because one of the things that really just grabbed me was this way that you have identified this validation of ourselves, the fact that we're allowed to hide, the fact that ultimately drives hate, and it's been pumped into our society like never before, actually. I mean, it's just, I've never known anything. So it's then ultimately, isn't it, seeping into the media everywhere that we're consuming. And you have zero tolerance for hate. Now, how are you reinventing that wheel? And how are you actually influencing positivity? Because for a lot of people, they would just go, this just can't be done. Like, how have you got the courage to do this, Sue?
Again, I mean, I just think it's, oh my God, no one else is going to do this. I mean, the hate piece has been really interesting because the fact that it is allowed is truly shocking, and the tech companies hide behind freedom of speech, but that is complete rubbish. What they are fueling is hate speech because they get more views, it makes things stickier, they can serve people more ads, and their business models thrive on that. Although I think we're learning from Elon Musk that advertisers are really tired. No one wants to turn up in a place full of hate, right? So, but I think it's hate abuse. We've got a lot of football clubs joining us, and the abuse that one player told us recently that he received 400 death threats on his Instagram DM, death threats, and his family, members of his family also received death threats, not just hate, actual death threats, because he missed a goal. So not only have we become the largest unpaid workforce in human history, and every brand has their beautiful organic content strangled with algorithms to force them to spend more money to buy ads, which is already, in my opinion, corrupt. Like, we are all working for the man, literally, Zuckerberg. Not only is that happening, but we're being fed, and our children are being fed hate. And that's just not okay. So the way we've built it, you can't be anonymous on 8. The way the 8 stage works, so the 8 stage is where we curate the top 8 every day, but it's where you can follow creators you love. And you have to be verified. Our version of the blue tick is a golden 8 halo. We're launching a whole new experience around that in January. It's very exciting. So we approve creators. You can't buy your way into that. We approve creators, and we've got a whole tone that we're setting. Bring your best, show up differently, inspire your audiences. And then the friends feed, because we've separated out the ads, there's a whole friends feed that we accept each other as friends. So if there's anything hateful either in a post, a comment, a profile, that would be it's someone that you've accepted, but we have 24-hour moderation. We have AI built in to protect it, and people are much, much less likely to do something if they can't be anonymous. Most of that comes from anonymity.
I was going to ask that. Is that, do you think that is the single, obviously there's a number of elements, but do you believe for the human spirit, and is that our biggest thing, that we just hide and we will know it, right? If you text something, but you would never say it in front of somebody, or even our tones change, don't they? When we can hide just behind a text message, even if they know who you are, it changes it. So now you don't even know who you are, so you can behave as you like. Do you think that is the bit?
Anonymity is a key to fixing along with the AI and everything else. But I think when we take a deeper look at that, it's the broken constructs of society. I mean, people are lonely, people are fearful, people can't get enough food on the table. It's all the basic needs of humanity that these platforms have broken down. I mean, we're seeing a result of 14 years of social media to the level of hate that we've got now. And the way I look at it on a big picture level is people are just angry and tired and scared. And, we all become the worst versions of ourselves when we're under economic pressure. We all become and some people's worst versions, if you don't have a value set that, I feel grateful that I had parents that instilled a set of values in me. But if I didn't have that, if I wasn't lucky enough to have that, then I'm rudderless. Layer on top of that 90 minutes a day of social media where I'm being fed and controlled. Layer on top of that the economic pressures on everyone. And in a way, I don't blame humanity. I blame the tech companies. Actually, I think there's a systemic, massive systemic rewrite that needs to happen. And look, governments haven't moved quickly enough. They're not set up to move quickly enough. I mean, this is why we need to have, we're giving each 8 citizen a vote. Actually, we're doing this whole program next year where we're going to have a vote on 8 as a verified individual 8 citizen. You're going to have a vote. So we're going to be able to put things out to the community saying, do you think we should do this? Or, I mean, at the moment, we don't take any money from oil companies, for example. We don't take any money from political parties, but we can put. What sickened me actually is seeing that Facebook took over $1 billion from charities in 2020, a year when the charities were on their knees. They took $1 billion in advertising revenue from charities, which was sort of shocking. So it's kind of, the whole goal is to have a global democratic voice.
The power is absolutely enormous. You know, I'm sure the listeners are thinking this as well. You know, you're talking about harnessing the humans, all of us, to do the right thing. And yet, do you get scared sometimes about what you're actually saying here? Like sometimes I say to people, be careful what you wish for, because I am only talking my own entrepreneurial experience. You know, had this dream and it was going to be great and no way was I going to succeed. But of course I was. And then I did. And then I built it. And then I was caught in it. And then it became bigger than I could ever believe. You know, I look at it now and I'm now older and wiser and I'm ready to go again. But does it scare you what you're actually saying? Because we can say these things. What happens when you're the new Zuckerberg?
Yeah, the thing is, oh God, that sends shivers down my spine.
No, but you know what I mean. I don't actually mean that. I mean that powerful position.
Yeah, do you know the thing is, I think that it's an entirely different mindset. I mean, I was built to serve, Holly. I mean, this is not about the money. I couldn't give a shit. Do I have a duty to make my shareholders money? Yes. Do I want to be able to, you know, have a house and a couple of holidays every year? Yeah, great. But the reality is it's the civic duty part of this. And by the way, it's not even about me. I've worked very hard. We always built this to be a new reimagined home for a couple of billion people on digital. We built this buying engine to support millions of brands. So for me, it's really about and becoming a B Corp. Was if I drop dead tomorrow, God, I hope that doesn't happen, because I really am excited about seeing the magical things that are going to emerge. The Creator Fund grows, and when we become a funnel of money to charities, I'm excited about seeing all of that. But the reality is, we're a B Corp. We have the infrastructure set up. We have it hard-coded that we share the majority of the wealth. We're giving people the vote. So it's everything we're doing is built to serve society in a transparent new way, because we've spent 7 years and $35 million really trying to reimagine, and we couldn't set it up as a not-for-profit because you can't, if it is charity, then it doesn't, the infrastructure's not there. We want to serve charities. We want to serve all that work.
Yeah, and also, you know, the way you're describing it, I'm almost going, yeah, couple of billion people. It's all right. You can do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually,
we can do that, right?
Well, it's because, you know, it's when I started this podcast saying, you know, tech and the imposter syndrome and Facebook and Instagram, as you said, these Goliath, you know, massive companies that you literally don't think that there's anything that can shake them or rock them. And yet when we're talking about this, you know, in the way that you're speaking about it, and I'd love to touch on this part, which is the femininity that you're bringing into this. You know, that the social media ultimately has been created by men, and I also am here to serve. It's funny you should say that. That's what I feel like that's it. For me, it's small businesses. For you, it's the globe and us humans. But I'm here to serve. And actually, you think about the qualities potentially we're both bringing into our own communities of care, of responsibility, of values, of helping the underdog, of helping people with less than ourselves, of bringing people together and actually not feeling threatened by that, by the connections are the most powerful thing that we can create. Talk to me about feeling, I'm sure it hasn't gone amiss, that's exactly what you're doing. And that's required that femininity to come into this very, very powerful position that you're going to find yourself in. Do you feel very feminine?
I do actually. I feel like I've always been fighting to get a seat at the table with the tech guys. I was told many times I needed a makeover. I've been told many, many times I needed a makeover. I wasn't young enough to be in this business. I didn't dress right, whatever. But this could only be created not just with experience of technology, media, the ad ecosystem, but it's with the heart of a woman, transparently. And so many people, because we share. We have sons and daughters and brothers and sisters and families, and we look at the world differently. And where they see control and power, and I'm being real, I work with some incredibly beautiful men, so I don't want to sound like that, and we can't marginalise. And I fear that, actually. I have 3 sons, and I'm worried that one of my sons said to me recently, "Mama, I'm going to have to become gay to get a job." And that worries me when when our kids are speaking like that. That's not good either, right?
It's almost, but I did a wonderful podcast with Mo Gaudet at the moment, a few weeks ago. And actually he helped me use the word femininity rather than woman and man. Because that's actually why I was saying about femininity. Because actually, I hope my son, who's going to turn 18, I talked to him about embracing his femininity. And actually, it's not to the detriment of his masculinity, but to embrace it, because actually that's something I fear that actually a lot of our young men don't necessarily feel that they can do. And I think that these are qualities in the future, especially in the world that you're creating, that they're going to be allowed to be more feminine.
Totally. And look, our whole thing, I think there's this reset, Holly, because we invite people to show up as their truest selves. So it doesn't matter how old you are, who you kiss, the colour of your skin, how many followers you have. It's you that are beautiful and powerful and amazing. So as we reset, how you show up as yourself is interesting. And we've been working with a lot of our 8 family of talent, amazing artists, actors, footballers, people, as they prepare to come into this new home where they can be their truest selves, because how they're going to show up, these musicians, people are going to show up as this reimagined version of themselves. And that is exciting, because that is going to set the tone for how we can all be our truest selves. I've got to say, I found it really challenging. I've never had a face. I saw the evil of it very early, and I felt the evil of it, honestly, very early. I've never had a Facebook page, because when you look at sort of the old world of social, I just saw how broken it, if you go back to looking into the TV and thinking about how it all worked.
Yeah.
I did the same thing very early with Facebook when he was being hailed as a god, connecting us all. And by the way, in some ways now, I'm thinking, thank you for connecting 2 billion people on the planet, because in about 12 months' time, I reckon they're going to be writing, "It's time to break up. Thank you very much. thank you for all the good times, but now it's time to leave.
And do you think, with COVID and everything and this, as you said, the global economic crises and the war and all these sorts of things, that we have reached a tipping point? There is times, don't you feel the universe almost has its crazy ability to time things? And I'm experiencing that right now for myself, but that you can't actually make it up, I think about what I'm hearing about Facebook, and I'm hearing all about the Meta and everything. And actually you're talking about January, and as much as you wanted to have a perfect storm, and you're a brilliant woman, there is something else, isn't there, that comes along that just gives you these environments where you're like, okay, literally the universe is saying for us to go for it.
I do. And that gets back to your femininity. I mean, I believe deeply. I mean, you can see I've got these crystals on my desk and all this coding stuff. I mean, it's all this mix of stuff, because the universe has to be on our side. By the way, I always sort of laugh at the idea that the planet does not need humanity. We're not saving the planet. We've got to unite to look after our own species and protect our beautiful planet. So I do feel on some, I really do feel like now is the time when we can come together. And what I'm excited about is seeing all of the people that are going to drive change and how that feels. That's exciting to me. I mean, it's always what the technology enables. I mean, great, Zuckerberg, you connected us, and that was brilliant. But the intention on why you built that technology was to judge women to get dates in university. And you've built that into a massive thing. And that's really good. Now it's time to realize.
Well, the scaffolding you've got is pure and it's full of values. It doesn't have that DNA in a way, that their DNA was corrupted already from the start, wasn't it? And it seeped into something being huge. And I think during the pandemic, I think a lot of us wanted to make change. We so desperately want to make change with the environment. We're relying on every 4 years having to deal with the comedy of our governments and all of these sorts of things. We feel absolutely powerless, and yet we're ready to vote. I talk about voting with your money. That's what I ask everybody to do for small businesses. I think society is ready to go. We've just not been able to do it together. And maybe that's what you're going to give us. I'm interested to know, how do you think the competitors are going to feel about you? And are you, because, you're talking about people who run the world, sort of. Are you worried about that? You worried about what could happen?
I mean, part of my job, right, Holly, is to look to risk protect all the downsides. So, yes, on every front, tech, infrastructure. I think, look, we've just got to always speak our truth to why. We've got to remain and continue fully transparent in everything we're doing. We've got security infrastructure and everything around all our tech. And we've got to, the thing is, if Facebook, Meta, Twitter, TikTok turn around and say, oh, we'll give 60% of our revenue back to people and planet, bring it on. I actually hope, look, they're going to attack me personally. In every way possible. I'm ready for that. I think I've been training for 35 years to get to a point where, I'm not 18. So I feel very ready personally for it. My team feels ready. We've got to keep speaking our truth. We're going to get things wrong, but the intention, the product, the infrastructure, everything is built to now be the new home, and it's not us controlling. I mean, I've always even loved people like Bill Gates, etc., and many tech leaders, but the reality is it's always the men controlling, even the philanthropy. They control where the money goes. They control what gets fixed, where the wealth goes, and I just don't think that is always the right way. I mean, I think we need to
Well, it's
look
not the
after each
future,
other.
is it? It can't be the future. You spoke about, January's coming along, lots of exciting things happening. You're changing the way people, huge amounts of money are bringing, advertising, and hopefully going to use your platform. You've got great names already, all on the platform. Is this also a place? I represent small businesses. Is this a place that small businesses can join in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I mean, I'm hugely grateful for all the big brands that are saying we're committed to a better way. But what we've built, I mean, Facebook make half their revenue from small and medium enterprise, and so we've built. We're making it equally as easy. We've built our version of Facebook Ad Manager, which is Sammy, our sustainable ad manager. It's delivering all these brands, whether we running campaigns for many brands like Huel, Packed Coffee, all of these small and medium brands, incredible results. Beauty brands, fashion brands. It's beautiful seeing the results for those small and medium businesses, because I think they've been really hurt by increasing conversion costs.
Oh, they have.
Right?
I mean,
are you seeing that?
I talk to founders oh my goodness. I talk to founders continuously. This is my 180th podcast. And, I talk about the changing landscapes and what businesses have relied upon and then built their success upon, and then everything just gets pulled from under their feet, and they've got to then find a new way. And the problem is they haven't worked any other muscle, and so they find themselves in a position where they're very, very vulnerable, and they shouldn't be. The foundations should have all been stacked, and they should have been able to bank that security.
Absolutely.
And they haven't been able to.
Absolutely. And I look at it, I mean, one of the things with our platform, so if you're following creators, or if you're a verified brand and you build a following, on WeAre8, we've got a little link, and you can tap on a piece of content and go out. So whether that's to your YouTube channel, to your website, to your whatever, you know how the old world, they keep you controlled in, you can't tap out anywhere.
Yeah.
Ours is different because we make our money transparently from that 2 or 4 minutes you watch an ad. Everything
not all
else,
the other hidden ways.
right? Not in other hidden ways. So if you're a beautiful brand, small business, and you're clever enough to create organic, beautiful content, and people want to follow you, if they then tap out and go and buy that product or learn more about that brand or whatever, all power to you, and that's in your database. Because one of the things that sort of outraged me is in the early days, everyone thought, oh, we're building our followers, we're building our database. No, they are not your customers. There's only one person. It's only the platforms that are benefiting. So we are completely the idea of sustainable and liberated infrastructure, because we're very confident that even those brands that are having that success will still buy ads, because we're delivering brands a 22% average click-through rate versus a 0.2 or 0.3, 0.4% click-through rate, and much better results. So we're confident in the model that we've built, so we don't have to strangle everyone. I know it's so broken. We're going to look back, Holly, and go, I reckon we're going to look back in whatever, a year, 2 years, and just go, oh my God, how was that really bad phase that we went through?
As you know, I'm passionate about celebrating small businesses and championing creativity within all of us. That's why I'm thrilled to be working with Adobe Express, who each week are handing over their ad break to a small business founder, shining a light on their own businesses and sharing how Adobe Express really is helping fuel their creativity. Thank you once more to Adobe, who have helped to make this podcast episode happen. If you want to find out more about Adobe Express and how it can help your business, head over to adobe.com/go/Holly Tucker. Now let's get back to our conversation of inspiration. From a sort of economic point of view as well, from a standpoint, if you're a small business and I am there, I would love to work with you and all of these sorts of things. But from also a personal point of view, for people, for what it's been doing to our mental health, the famous Netflix documentary. Look at our children. You have 3 sons. I have 1 son. Through whatever age I allowed him to get a phone. And then there was the screen time that we allowed him. And then that obviously goes completely out the window. And then you get to the point where now, ultimately, it's just, it is in our hand. It's almost, it's sewn into his hand. It's basically continuous. It's we think it's a good day when it's 3 hours. And that's going in and out, in and out. This, what you're talking about is basically if we allow ourselves, if we come off the addiction, you're not going to try and force us back in. And this could potentially start to be some healing remedies for our young. I mean, how do you think they're going to, are you looking to try and compete with the TikToks and all of that sort of side of things?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting by saying 8 minutes a day. So just come into 8 for 8 minutes a day, get inspired by awesome content, see your friends, watch a couple of ads and get paid, pay your Spotify, pay your mobile bill, happy days. What we do think is going to happen, and by the way, when you're scrolling on the 8 stage, it's then going to say there's a little 8 hand that is basically the open hand of connection, and you can add one to your profile and stuff. But along with an anthem, actually, you can add a song to your profile, which is kind of a nod to MySpace. Everyone loved that, actually. But we're saying get off, go and live. What I feel on a deep level that we have to do is remind people how absolutely magical it is to put our heads up and start celebrating each other and really connecting with each other and, I'm safe here, and then start inspiring people with the process of creativity. Because what TikTok's done, we're using other people's songs, we're dancing, and then we're following everyone's dances. We're not actually thinking, creating. Everything is sort of the same. And actually it's going pretty weird, honestly, on what's being pushed to. It's so horrifically weird, it's frightening. I mean, even that I think is the worst in some ways. It's so twisted and freak showish half the time.
Yep.
So you look at
that's my evening's supper time with my son. He just saves these videos and we sit down and my husband's cooked a lovely meal and we're sitting there as a family and he says, do you want to see a couple of videos? And I go, And he shows them to me and I'm like, where did you get those? He's like, it's just on TikTok. It's actually unbelievable what our young have in their heads that I never knew until I was about 20. And actually, I still am learning. I mean, there's still stuff that I can't believe that's in their heads. But I love this idea that this hand almost comes along and almost pushes you back out into the world.
Yeah.
Exactly what you do not expect from someone that's meant to be sucking us in.
Yeah. And that coupled with amazing people we love, inspiring us to do little things that are reconnecting us with life, really. Whether that is, walking a dog or whatever it is. It's because there are so many nature photographers, videographers, all of these great creators that have thrived on, lots of these platforms. They're not making a lot of money unless they get brand. They have to hustle and go and do deals with brands directly. Mm-hmm. But as a platform, 5% of our money goes to our creator fund. So that's fueling a whole creative economy for all of these people to bring their best content and have their pure creativity fueled I'm very excited about that actually, and what it's going to create.
It's just going to be magical, isn't it? I mean, you can sort of picture it, but you probably are never going to be able to picture what's coming your way because that's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
You're going to tap into something. Tell me, before I come to the end of this podcast, I wanted to ask you, what would you say is it has to be a big question to you because you came onto this podcast basically saying you're going to help 2 billion people and help make us happier and more creative. Don't worry, I'm slightly going to hold you to it, but that's fine.
No,
Tell me what your ultimate, don't you worry. I send little cards. I'm going to send you a lovely card. Tell me what the ultimate dream is for you. So when you look back at 64, you'll still be doing this, I'm sure. What would you hope to have achieved?
I think together we can create a new sustainable economic framework so that is just free-flowing and the new normal, where 2 billion people are voting on collective issues, that we have a really healthy planet because we've pumped billions of dollars back into it, where we have a healthy, thriving, creative economy and people have a source of support to do that, and where we're collaborating across the whole ecosystem with each other in ways that we haven't imagined. And that's where it's infinite, right? It's sustainable and it's infinite, and that I cannot even imagine. I mean, I was looking at Charity Water, a charity that I really love because they have well sponsors that fund all of the organisation, and then every pound you put towards them or every dollar goes to a project, and so it's fully transparent, and I absolutely love them. And we were imagining a world where 1 billion people donating $1 from their wallet through to Charity Water. Imagine that happening in a day, right? So 1 billion people getting a Coca-Cola ad. And look, you could say as an activist for the planet, do you accept ads from Coca-Cola? Yes, we do, but it's your choice whether you want to watch it. We don't accept oil companies. But imagine 8 brands sending out 8 ads to 1 billion people today. We're getting $1 and we're paying it forward to Charity Water. That's $1 billion in the water coffers to help get 800 million people fresh water. So it's this. So imagine every month then, all I want to do is once this ecosystem is all built and thriving, I just want to invent amazing things that we can solve together to make it so fun. Imagine getting a message, push notification, Holly, good morning. Guess what today? We're going to end the water crisis. No fucking way. Are you kidding me? Yes, that's what we're going to do.
God, Sue. I mean, this is killing me. I'm literally so excited. I can barely even speak and finish this podcast. What are you saying? I mean, I would literally just jump out of my bed. I would watch my ads. I would get paid and I would pay it forward. And then I would want you to say something to me tomorrow as well. And this is what you're saying, that we could actually, in every single day of our lives, not just moan at the TV, and expect other people to do it. You're putting the power in our hands.
Yeah, you're putting the power really in your own hands at that point. We've just built the infrastructure. It's not even us. Then, and by the way, we've realised that it's a lot about the celebration. So after you do that, you're going to get all these loved up messages from your friends. You're going to get a thing from Charity Water. You're going to see those wells in Africa. You're going to feel, actually, it's the giant
feel the
shoot.
Effect.
Yeah, it's the shoot.
And look what that's doing. Rather than negativity that we're sucking up, we're actually going to be then sucking up the good news. And that's what I always say to, I say to the young kids in my life, there is so much more good news than bad news. It just so happens that you only hear about the bad news. And that is, 10% of the world. 90% of everything that happens today on this planet is beautiful. And that's the thing that you need to hear. So I'm literally, I don't know how I'm going to even concentrate after this podcast, but we always end this podcast with a analogy of a roller coaster. Now yours, I'm almost picturing it so big and, almost the roller coaster goes into space a bit, not Elon Musk-y, but you know what I mean? Like into space a bit and all those sort of things. Tell me, what would you say has been one of your biggest lows throughout your career?
Oh, truthfully, Holly, I've had so many. But look, having 1 month capital money to left and not knowing how I was going to pay 24 salaries 4 weeks from Christmas, that was a low point. I did work it out. This is a number of years ago in the middle of COVID. Letting people go, it's just still so hard, and it's even harder for a mission-driven business. I still find it really hard when I have to let people go. And, it's just hanging on to the light when things feel really tough. I mean, you've felt it, we've all felt it, and it's just hanging on and finding that reason deep in your boots just to keep going.
I empathize. I mean, I didn't have to do that, but it's scary. It's scary building. It's as much as we can high five the hell out of each other. It is scary building, isn't it? Conversely, talking about the highs, what would you say has been your biggest high so far?
Weirdly, and actually, again, there've been a lot of highs. They always come out of the lows. The best highs are also never to do with the money. They're always about the people. So when I look back, they're never selling a company. When I sold my first company, I actually just wanted to go to bed for 3 days. I was so exhausted. The highs, I remember dancing at the opening ceremony of the Sydney Olympic Games with my team of nearly 100 people. Everyone had worked so hard. I remember walking up the steps to the Great Hall of the People when we brought the first musical to China with Lloyd Webber. So many magical moments with people who have worked so hard to get somewhere. And that's why, you talk about Elon and outer space. There's an amazing OCEAF, an ocean research vessel that we're by the way, 80% of our oceans are not yet explored. They need $8 million a year to fund all the ocean research projects. David Attenborough is an amazing supporter. But we want to unite 8 million people to watch ads for 1 day in June and fund a year's worth of ocean research projects. And so while they're all off in space, while Elon's trying to control outer space, hello, we've got the perfect planet right here. Can we just focus on that for just a minute? And so the fun, when you say the greatest high, I look at things that are coming up and what is possible through tiny, fun, collective action. By the way, imagine David Attenborough sending you a little notification saying, thank you so much. He has not agreed to do this yet. I'm hoping he will if you know him.
By the way, did I not tell you, Sue, you can say anything on this podcast and it comes true? It's got a magical thing.
Really?
So don't you worry. David is going to say yes now, because somehow all my guests tell me then when they put this out on this podcast, it's like it's transporting it somewhere. So just consider it done.
Oh, I love that, because imagine in June, 8 million people watching ads for 1 minute a day or $1 a day and funding the discovery of our oceans.
And my son wants to be a marine archaeologist, so I'm right there.
I don't know.
Of course.
Holly?
Okay.
We're going.
Please.
We're doing this.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is getting better and better. I just honestly, Sue, I literally, you might be a bit busy building a new social media platform, and I'm really conscious of the time. Tell me, I asked you if you would write a letter to your younger self. And I can't believe I'm asking such a busy woman to do something like this. But I was wondering if you have, and if you have, whether you would read it out.
Yes, I have. And I have to There was, on Saturday morning, I was saying, oh my God, this is really painful having to do this. And then by the end of it, I actually wanted to thank you because I have done it anyway. It's a very unusual thing for me to do, and it feels, I never look back. So it made me very uncomfortable. So I'm trusting you with my soul here, Holly, because it was a very hard thing for me to do on Saturday morning.
I thank you for giving up your precious time Saturday morning, for not cursing me too much, which I know many, many, many busy founders literally go, I agree to the podcast. I did not agree to Saturday morning. And though for you looking at the past, because I know you're 1,000 miles going in the future. And so I really do thank you for sharing with us a little bit of your soul today, Sue.
Oh, thanks, Holly. Shall I dive in?
Go ahead.
Letter to my younger self. The funny thing about writing this letter is that I don't often look back, and writing this is a really tough thing for me to do. And maybe, little Susie, you should look back sometimes, even if just to look at what your amazing teams are doing every day and celebrate them. I always strive forward, driven by some invisible force that I know you feel too. You've always felt this, even from the time you used to talk into the TV and imagine what was possible when the characters would talk back to you. Strangely, everything good seems to happen when we don't force it. Just keep working hard and try and breathe in between your obsessively driven focus, and forgive yourself for all the mistakes. Know that I see your truth and the pure intention deep in your heart, and always know that you're braver and more resilient than anyone knows. Just go for it. When you see the injustice and those really big problems in a way that other people don't, and you dream up the solutions, just keep going. When you feel like no one understands what you're talking about, just keep going. Eventually, people will see and understand because you see things in a different way. And that's a good thing, even though I know it makes you feel so lonely. I would say don't let the injustices you see all around you make you angry, but you probably need to see and feel that to see how everything is connected and see how big business can be reimagined. Your sensitivity is your superpower. And the way you look at the world and want to deeply protect people and our planet is beautiful and powerful. Don't let people tell you this is a distraction. It is at the heart of everything, and broken big business will wake up to that one day. You're a poet, a creator, and an observer, and you know you have to fight against the injustice. And you know that you can compete with those big tech guys and do it better. Trust your gut. You can reimagine the systems upon which we all live in a way that we all move, from scarcity, fear, and hate to abundance, freedom, and love. And in the process, people around the world will wake up to their amazing power to change the world together. Never let anyone tell you it is impossible. To my 8-year-old self, you are sunshine. Keep shining brightly, even when Megan Wixie tries to bash you up. And you can escape North Dandenong. Those big dreams you have will become real. To my 18-year-old self, please be brave enough not to laugh it off when your radio station boss calls you Legs 11, and remind him respectfully that your name is Sue. Learn to read contracts well. Some people will tell you all the things they will do for you, and then after the deal is signed, they do nothing. Put accountability into all contracts, and then put on loud music and dance it out. To my 28-year-old self, learn to talk about numbers and company growth like a banker. Use the fact that others underestimate you as a strength. It makes them blind. Take a breath. You know that small daily actions done with discipline and consistency will drive results. That every extra hour separates you from the norm. And it's all going to be okay. You will fall in love. You will work in New York City. To my 38-year-old self, 3 small sons and work can coexist. Good friendships are precious treasures. Nurture them. Always invest in hiring people that you think you can't afford, and always elevate and champion them. Only work with exceptional people. To my 48-year-old self, I know you feel like you're living on a razor's edge, but you can learn to dance there too. The best is yet to come, and you will get through it. Go for more walks in the forest and breathe. When you feel most alone, that is when you can connect with your higher self. All the best things are really, really hard. Keep going. You see the world differently, and that's a good thing. Let the energy from people telling you it is impossible put fire in your belly. Life is too short to make yourself small to make others feel comfortable. You know it's destined for women and diverse leaders to transform the broken $500 billion digital media sector and build the biggest digital media company in the world, because that is exactly how we solve the global, economic and climate and mental health crises we find ourselves in today. You know it. Just keep going. End. Thank God, she says. Sorry. I know that was so long.
I mean, it was just so bloody beautiful. I just literally thought oh my goodness. And I know so many people are going to be wiping away tears. Thank you.
That was really hard for me, you beautiful woman.
It was just so beautiful and vulnerable. And I empathized with those dates and those moments you picked to pick out. And I was thinking when you were reading, I'm so glad you're backing our corner. I'm so glad that you have been put on this planet.
Oh,
I'm just so honoured that you have come onto this podcast, because I know where you're going. And I'll be able to say one day, do you know I interviewed her? Do you know that I actually spent that time with her? And as a female leader, I now look up to you as one of the greats. And I would just wish you absolutely everything. And I really, please don't give up, because actually you just spoke such beautiful words and we all need you to do this. So you've got our backing, and thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Holly. You are right back at you, because you are a beautiful, beautiful human being, and I love what you're doing.
Before you go, don't forget to head to adobe.com/go/Holly Tucker to find out how Adobe Express can fuel creativity in your business. And if you've enjoyed this episode, if it's helped you along your journey or inspired you, would you mind rating and reviewing? Your support means the world to me. It really does spread the word and will help inspire even more people to build a life they love. And if you want to hear all our latest news, you can sign up to my weekly newsletter, Holly's Desk Notes, over at holly.co.